I was arranging flowers in my kitchen when I heard my son-in-law tell someone I was just a worthless old woman taking up space. The words hit me like ice water. I'd been trimming the stems of the roses from my garden, the same roses Robert had planted for our 40th anniversary. My hands stilled on the scissors. Derek was on the back porch, probably thinking I couldn't hear him through the screen door. After 43 years of teaching elementary school, I'd learned that people often forgot how well sound carried. No, she's healthy as a horse, Derek continued, his voice carrying that fake concern I'd started noticing lately. But 73 is 73, and this house. Man, you should see this place. Prime real estate. Once Emma inherits it, we're talking at least 400 grand, maybe more in this market. If you're watching this because you've ever felt that gut punch of betrayal from family, I want you to know you're not alone. Please hit that like button and subscribe. We need to share these stories because staying silent is what they count on. I forced myself to keep arranging the flowers, though my hands trembled slightly. The person on the other end must have asked something because Derek laughed. Not his charming laugh, the one that had won over my Emma 10 years ago. This was different, calculating. Trust me, it won't be long. Emma's already on board. Her mom's been living alone for 3 years now since her dad died. It's not safe, right? That's what we keep telling her. Plant the seeds, water them with concern. He paused. The old bat doesn't even realize we've been documenting every little forget, every stumble. By Christmas, we'll have her in sunny meadows and this place will be ours. Old bat, worthless old woman. The words echoed in my head as I mechanically placed the roses in Robert's favorite crystal vase. There's something about hearing your true value in someone's eyes that changes you. It's like watching a mask slip off, revealing something ugly underneath that was there all along. I moved quietly to the window, just enough to see Derek pacing on the porch. He was wearing the golf shirt Emma had bought him for his birthday. I'd helped her pick it out, wrapped it myself with the silver paper he'd said looked so elegant. Funny how different someone looks when you finally see who they really are. Yeah, Emma's been stressed about it, he continued. She keeps saying her mom seems fine, but I'm working on her. You know how daughters are, all emotional about their mothers. But when I show her the brochures for Sunny Meadows, talk about how her mom could fall down those stairs any day now, she gets this look. She's coming around. My Emma, my sweet Emma who still called me every morning, who brought me groceries every Wednesday, who sat with me through those first horrible months after Robert passed. Was she really part of this? The thought made my chest tight in a way that had nothing to do with my perfectly healthy heart. I heard Derek ending his call, something about meeting up for drinks later to celebrate early. My mind was racing, but my body moved on autopilot. I walked back to the counter, picked up my pruning shears, and continued trimming stems as if my world hadn't just tilted off its axis. The screen door creaked. Oh, hey, Margaret. Derek's voice was honey-sweet now. Didn't know you were home. Those flowers are beautiful. I turned, making sure my face showed nothing but my usual pleasant smile. 43 years of parent-teacher conferences had taught me how to keep my expression neutral no matter what I was thinking. Thank you, dear. From Robert's rose bushes. They're doing so well this year. That's great, that's really great. He was studying me, I could tell, looking for signs I'd heard anything. Hey, Emma and I were thinking of coming over for dinner tonight. That pot roast you make, Emma's been craving it. Of course, I said, my voice steady as my hands. You know you're always welcome, 6 o'clock. Perfect. You're the best, Margaret, really. Emma's so lucky to have a mom like you. He left through the front door, probably proud of himself for his performance. I stood there in my kitchen, surrounded by the scent of roses and betrayal, and felt something shift inside me. They thought I was just a worthless old woman taking up space in a house they already considered theirs. I looked around my kitchen, at the copper pots Robert had surprised me with for our anniversary, at the kitchen table where Emma had done her homework for 18 years, at the window that looked out over the garden we'd built together, season by season, year by year. This wasn't just a house. This was my life, my memories, my sanctuary. Derek thought I was worthless. Well, Maybe it was time to show him exactly what this worthless old woman was capable of. But first, I needed to understand the full picture. If there's one thing teaching had taught me, it's that you never confront a problem until you have all the facts. I finished arranging the roses, their red petals perfect against the crystal. Then I went to the hall closet and pulled out the guest towels. If they were coming for dinner, I'd make everything perfect. Let them think nothing had changed. Let them believe their worthless old woman suspected nothing. But as I set the dining room table with my good china, the one Robert's mother had passed down to me, my mind was already working. Derek might think he was playing chess, but he didn't know that before I taught 3rd grade, I'd gotten my master's degree in psychology. He didn't know that Robert, my wonderful, cautious Robert, had made sure everything was ironclad legally before he died. Most importantly, Derek didn't know that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who lets you think you're winning. 6 o'clock couldn't come fast enough. I had some observing to do, and this time I'd be watching very carefully indeed. That evening, Derek arrived with Emma for our weekly dinner, his smile as wide as always. But now I could see the calculation behind it, the way his eyes swept over my foyer like he was already measuring for new furniture. "Mom, you look wonderful." Emma hugged me, and I held her a moment longer than usual. My beautiful girl, with her father's gentle eyes and my stubborn chin. She felt tense in my arms, like a guitar string wound too tight. "Let me help with dinner," she said quickly, already moving toward the kitchen. Derek followed us, his hand on her lower back in what looked like affection but felt more like steering. "Margaret, something smells amazing," Derek said, settling himself at the kitchen island. The same spot where Robert used to sit and taste test my cooking, offering suggestions with a wink and a smile. "You really shouldn't go to all this trouble for us." "It's no trouble," I said, checking the pot roast. "I enjoy cooking for family." "Still all this work, and this big house to maintain too." He shook his head, that practiced look of concern sliding over his features. "Don't you ever get tired? I mean, at your age, you've earned the right to relax." At my age, there it was again. I was 73, not decrepit. I still did water aerobics 3 times a week, volunteered at the library, and could outwork most people half my age in the garden. But to Derek, I was already halfway to the grave. "I manage just fine," I said pleasantly, handing Emma the salad bowl. She took it without meeting my eyes. "Of course you do," Derek said quickly. "I didn't mean, it's just we worry about you, right, Em?" Emma's hands stilled on the salad tongs. "Mom's doing great," she said softly. Sure, but that's today. What about tomorrow? What about next year?" Derek leaned forward, his voice taking on that earnest tone I now recognized as his sales pitch. "I was just reading about this woman, 75, seemed perfectly healthy. Fell down her stairs, laid there for 2 days before anyone found her." "Derek," Emma whispered, a warning in her voice. "What? I'm just saying we need to think about these things. Your mom's safety should be our top priority." He turned to me, those calculating eyes full of false warmth. "Margaret, have you ever considered alternative living arrangements? Somewhere with people around, medical staff, no stairs to worry about." I set the roast on the table, proud of how steady my hands remained. "You mean a nursing home?" "No, well, I mean, they're not called that anymore. Senior living communities. They're actually really nice now, like resorts almost." He pulled out his phone. "I saved some links." "Derek, not now," Emma said sharply. She was gripping the salad tongs so tightly her knuckles were white. "We're having dinner." "I'm just trying to help," he said, wounded innocence in every syllable. "Your mother's well-being is important to me, to us." I watched my daughter's face as we ate. Every time Derek mentioned my safety or the burden of maintaining the house, she flinched. When he started talking about how much work the garden must be, how dangerous the basement stairs were, how isolated I was out here, she pushed her food around her plate like she'd lost her appetite. "The Petersons sold their place last month," Derek mentioned casually, cutting his meat with precise movements. "Got nearly $500,000. Can you imagine? The market's incredible right now." "Good for them," I said. Though I heard they regretted leaving. Martha Peterson called me last week. The condo they bought doesn't allow her to keep her cats. Derek waved this away. Small sacrifice for peace of mind. No maintenance, no property taxes eating up retirement savings, no worrying about break-ins. Has there been a break-in I should know about? I asked innocently. Well, no, but crime is everywhere these days. A woman living alone. He let it trail off, shaking his head. A woman, Al. Living alone. Like I hadn't been doing exactly that for 3 years. Like I was some helpless victim waiting to happen instead of someone who'd raised 3 children, buried a husband, and survived things that would have broken Derek's soft, scheming heart. Mom's not alone, Emma said suddenly. She has neighbors, friends, her church group. Of course, of course. Derek patted her hand, and I saw her try not to pull away. I'm not saying she's isolated, just that there are options, better options, safer options. The word safer came up 17 times during dinner. I counted, along with worried 12 times, concerned 8 times, and at your age, 6 times. It was like watching a mediocre salesman work from a script, hitting all the points he'd memorized but without any real finesse. Robert would have seen through him in a heartbeat. My husband had been a contractor, built half the commercial buildings in Columbus with his own hands. He knew quality from garbage, in materials and in people. I wondered, not for the first time, what he would have thought of Derek. I should get the dessert, I said, standing to clear the plates. Let me help. Emma jumped up so fast she nearly knocked over her water glass. In the kitchen, away from Derek, she finally looked at me, really looked at me. Mom, I'm sorry about. He just worries, we both do. I studied my daughter's face. There were new lines around her eyes, a tightness to her mouth I hadn't seen before. Emma, honey, is everything all right? Of course, why wouldn't it be? But her laugh was brittle, like spun glass ready to shatter. You know you can talk to me about anything, I said, touching her cheek the way I used to when she was small and scared of thunderstorms. For a moment, I thought she might tell me everything. Her eyes filled with tears, and her mouth opened like words were fighting to get out. Then Derek called from the dining room, asking about coffee, and the moment shattered. Everything's fine, Mom. Really. She grabbed the apple pie and headed back, leaving me alone with my questions and growing certainty that everything was very much not fine. The rest of the evening passed in Derek's monologue about retirement communities. He had brochures on his phone, testimonials from satisfied residents, statistics about accidents in the home. Emma sat silent beside him, occasionally murmuring agreement when he looked at her for support. When they finally left, I hugged my daughter extra tight. I love you, sweetheart, no matter what. She clung to me for a moment, then pulled away. I love you too, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow. Derek shook my hand, his grip firm and confident. Think about what I said, Margaret. We only want what's best for you. I stood in my doorway, watching their taillights disappear into the darkness. Then I went back inside to clear the dessert plates and noticed Emma's purse on the floor beside her chair. She'd been so eager to leave she'd forgotten it. I picked it up intending to call her when a glossy brochure slipped out. Sunny Meadows Senior Living. The same place Derek had mentioned on his phone call. But it was what was written in the margins that made my blood run cold. In Derek's neat handwriting, power of attorney forms in glove compartment. Get her to sign ASAP. House assessment scheduled for next month. The brochure's pages were already marked with yellow highlighter, neat fluorescent lines drawing attention to phrases like 24-hour supervision and medication management and specialized memory care unit. Memory care. As if I'd forgotten anything. As if I wasn't sharp enough to see exactly what was happening here. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Emma with her algebra homework, where Robert had proposed to me over coffee and toast 47 years ago. My hands shook as I spread the brochure flat, reading Derek's notes in the margins. His handwriting was precise, controlled, just like him. Monthly cost, $6,500, can offset with house sale. Power of attorney, Dr. Brennan will sign competency concerns. Emma inherits, we manage sale, timeline, 3-4 months max. Dr. Brennan, That was Emma's doctor, not mine. How had Derek gotten him involved? What lies had he told? I flipped through more pages, finding a sticky note that made my stomach turn. M's birthday next month, perfect timing for gift of taking care of everything. A gift. They were going to steal my home, my independence, my life, and wrap it up like a birthday present. I found myself laughing, a bitter sound in the quiet kitchen. You know what's funny about betrayal? It's not the enemy who hurts you most. It's the ones who smile at your dinner table, who hug you goodbye, who say they love you while sharpening knives behind their backs. More papers were tucked into the brochure. A printed email from a realtor. Derek, as discussed, the property at 445 Maple Grove could easily list at $475K in coup. Our rent market. Original hardwood, vintage details, very desirable. Let me know when you're ready to move forward. My address. My home, already being discussed like I was already gone. But it was the last document that broke my heart clean in two. A draft of a letter in Emma's handwriting. Mom, I'm worried about you living alone. After Dad died, you've seemed so fragile. Derek and I think. The sentence wasn't finished, like she couldn't quite bring herself to complete the lie. My Emma, my baby girl who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, who'd named every one of her dolls after flowers in my garden, who'd cried on my shoulder when her high school boyfriend broke her heart. When had she become someone who could do this? I thought about calling her right then, confronting her with the evidence spread across my table. But something Robert used to say stopped me. When you're angry, Margaret, that's when you need to be smartest. Anger makes fools of us all if we let it. He was right, of course. He usually was. I couldn't act on emotion. I needed to understand the full scope of what I was facing. Derek's notes mentioned power of attorney forms in the glove compartment. Were they already filled out, just waiting for my signature? And this Dr. Brennan, what exactly had he agreed to? I carefully photographed each page with my phone. Emma had taught me how to use the camera last year, never imagining I'd use it to document her betrayal. Then I noticed something else in her purse, her credit card statement. I shouldn't have looked, but I was past worrying about privacy. My heart sank further. Debt, so much debt. Cash advances, missed payments, a second mortgage I knew nothing about. Over $80,000 in the red. No wonder Derek was so eager to get his hands on my house. They were drowning, and I was their life raft. But why hadn't Emma come to me? I would have helped. I would have. But even as I thought it, I knew why. Pride. The same pride I'd instilled in her, the same independence I'd taught her to value. She'd rather betray me than admit she needed help. I put everything back in the purse exactly as I'd found it, then sat in the darkness of my kitchen, thinking. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 11. Robert had restored that clock himself, spent weeks getting it to run perfectly. Like everything in this house, it had his touch, his care, his love. That's when I remembered Harold Morrison, Robert's lawyer, his poker buddy, his friend since they'd served in Vietnam together. Harold had handled Robert's will, made sure everything was properly arranged. He'd held my hand at the funeral, promised to be there if I ever needed anything. I'd never taken him up on it. Too proud, maybe, too determined to prove I could manage on my own. But this was beyond managing. This was war, even if the enemy was my own family. I found Harold's number in my address book. Yes, I still kept a physical address book, despite Derek's mockery of my outdated ways. His cell phone was listed under his office number. Would he even remember me after 3 years? My finger hovered over the phone. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. No pretending everything was fine, no keeping the peace. But then I thought about Derek's voice on the porch. Worthless old woman. I thought about him sitting at my table, eating my food, planning my imprisonment. And I thought about Emma, my daughter who was drowning in debt and didn't trust me enough to ask for help. Who was letting her husband turn her into someone I didn't recognize. She needed saving as much as I did, even if she couldn't see it. The clock chimed the quarter hour. 11:15, not too late for a call between old friends. Harold had always been a night owl anyway. I picked up the phone and dialed, my fingers steady now, my mind clear. Harold, it's Margaret Sullivan, Robert's wife. My voice was calm, controlled. 43 years of teaching had taught me that too, how to sound unshakable even when your world was falling apart. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need your help, I think. No, I know someone is trying to steal my home. There was a pause, then Harold's gravelly voice, warm with concern. Margaret, tell me everything. Start from the beginning. So I did, and with every word I felt the fog of shock and hurt lifting, replaced by something harder, sharper. They thought I was just a worthless old woman. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were, because I wasn't just protecting my house anymore. I was protecting my daughter too, even if she didn't know she needed it yet. The real fight was just beginning, and I had something Derek didn't count on: decades of wisdom, a network of friends, and the kind of righteous anger that could move mountains. Or at least, move one calculating son-in-law out of my life for good. Harold's voice was warm when he answered, just like when Robert was alive, and for a moment I could almost pretend I was calling to confirm poker night plans, instead of reporting an attempted theft by my own family. Margaret, I'm glad you called, Harold said after I'd explained everything. Can you come by my office tomorrow morning? Bring every document you have regarding the house, your will, any powers of attorney, everything. Of course, Harold. Have you heard anything about Derek making inquiries? There was a pause, the kind that told me more than words could. Let's just say your son-in-law isn't as subtle as he thinks he is. Been asking around about property laws, elderly guardianship procedures. Made the mistake of calling my paralegal last week, pretending to be asking for a friend. My grip tightened on the phone. So Derek had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. All those dinners, all those concerned smiles, all those hugs goodbye, just a performance while he plotted behind my back. The next morning, I arrived at Harold's office 15 minutes early, carrying a banker's box full of documents. His secretary, Louise, who'd known me for 20 years, gave me a hug that said she knew why I was there. He's waiting for you, honey, she said, her eyes full of sympathy. You want some coffee, the good stuff, not that swamp water Harold makes. Harold's office hadn't changed in the decade I'd been coming here. Same leather chairs, same wall of law books, same photo of him and Robert in their army uniforms, young and invincible in 1969. He stood when I entered, came around the desk to take the box from me. You look good, Margaret. Strong, that's good. You're going to need to be strong for what's coming. We spent the first hour going through everything. The will Robert and I had updated just 6 months before he died. The deed to the house, insurance policies, bank statements. Harold took notes in his careful script, occasionally making sounds that could have been approval or concern. First thing, he said, adjusting his reading glasses, Derek's been busy. He's contacted 3 different law firms about guardianship proceedings, fishing for someone who'd take the case. He's also been in touch with Adult Protective Services, trying to build a case that you're incompetent. The word hit me like a slap. Incompetent. Me, who'd managed a classroom of 38-year-olds, who'd raised 3 children, who'd nursed Robert through his final illness without missing a single medication or appointment. What's he telling them? The usual song and dance. You're forgetful, you've had some falls, you're confused about finances. He claimed you gave him power of attorney but now don't remember. Harold's eyes flashed with anger. Louise's nephew works at APS. Completely off the record, they're not buying it. Your doctor submitted a statement last month for your driving license renewal saying you're in excellent health. Thank God for Dr. Patterson, who'd been my physician for 15 years and wouldn't lie for anyone. But then I remembered Derek's note about Dr. Brennan. He mentioned getting Emma's doctor to sign something about competency concerns, I said. Harold made another note. We'll deal with that. No doctor can declare you incompetent without examining you, and even then, it's a legal process, not a medical one. Derek's trying to take shortcuts that don't exist. What about the house? Can he force a sale somehow if Emma inherits? That's where things get interesting. Harold pulled out the deed, running his finger along the legal language. Margaret, do you remember the exact terms of how the house is titled? Robert handled most of that. I know both our names were on it. Yes, but it's how they're on it that matters. Harold smiled, the first real smile since I'd arrived. Robert was a smart man. The house is titled as joint tenants with right of survivorship with a very specific clause. Look here. He pointed to a paragraph of dense legal text. Robert added what's called a life estate remainder. Essentially, the house is yours for life, but he also created a trust that kicks in if anyone tries to force you out. The trustee, me, and the beneficiaries. Your 3 children equally, but only after your death, and only if they haven't attempted to unduly influence, coerce, or prematurely displace you from the property. I stared at the paper. Robert did this. 3 months before he died. He came in here, sat in that same chair you're in now, and said, Harold, I need to make sure Margaret is protected, no matter what. I think he saw something in Derek even then. My eyes burned with tears I wouldn't let fall. My Robert, still protecting me even from beyond the grave. He'd known. Somehow he'd known. So if Derek forces me out, he and Emma get nothing, ever. The house would go to your other children upon your death, or to the charity of your choosing if they're also involved in any coercion. Harold leaned back, satisfaction clear on his face. It's ironclad. I wrote it myself, and I've been practicing law for 43 years. But they don't know about this clause. Apparently not. Derek's been proceeding as if it's a simple inheritance situation. He's in for a surprise. Harold's expression grew serious again. But Margaret, this is going to get ugly. When Derek realizes he can't just take the house, he might escalate. We need to document everything, build a case for harassment and attempted elder abuse. Elder abuse. The words made me flinch, but Harold was right. That's what this was, wrapped up in concern and family dinners. What do you recommend? First, we file a preemptive statement with Adult Protective Services, documenting that you're of sound mind and that you're being pressured. Second, we send Derek a cease and desist letter formally telling him to back off. Third, he paused, studying me. You might want to consider whether Emma is a victim here too or a willing participant. That's going to affect how we proceed. I thought about the unfinished letter in Emma's handwriting, the debt statements, the way she'd flinched every time Derek spoke at dinner. I think she's both. Desperate enough to go along with it, but not happy about it. Then we need to be strategic, drive a wedge between them, give Emma a way out that doesn't destroy her completely. Harold pulled out a fresh legal pad. Now, let's talk about recording laws in Ohio. You mentioned you overheard Derek on the phone. Yes, on my back porch. Ohio is a one-party consent state. You can legally record any conversation you're part of. I suggest you start. Get everything on tape, every threat, every lie, every manipulation. Build your case. I can do that. I thought about my smartphone, another thing Derek mocked me for barely knowing how to use. Time to learn some new tricks. Good, now there's something else. Harold pulled out another document. This is a durable power of attorney naming me as your agent if you ever do become incapacitated. It supersedes any other document, and it's dated yesterday. Sign this, and Derek can't touch you even if he somehow gets Emma to claim power of attorney. As I signed my name with a steady hand, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since hearing those awful words on the porch, I wasn't just reacting. I was fighting back. Harold, I want to ask you something. The trust Robert set up, is there any way to help Emma with her debts without giving Derek access to anything? Harold's eyes softened. You're a good mother, Margaret. Yes, there are ways. We could set up a separate trust for Emma with conditions. Pay off her debts directly, maybe, but with strings-attached counseling requirements, financial management courses, and absolutely no access for Derek. Let's explore that. After this is over. Because it would be over. One way or another, Derek's days of calling me worthless while plotting to steal my home were numbered. As I gathered my copies of the documents, Harold walked me to the door. Margaret, you've got more fight in you than most people half your age. Robert would be proud. I know, I said, and I did know. I could almost feel Robert beside me, his hand on my shoulder, his voice in my ear. Give him hell, Maggie. I left Harold's office with a battle plan and a recording app downloaded on my phone. Derek thought he was dealing with a worthless old woman. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. But first, I needed to check one more thing. Something Harold had said about the deed sparked a memory. There were more papers in Robert's old filing cabinet, documents I hadn't looked at since he died. Time to see what other surprises my clever husband might have left behind. The deed was still in both my and Robert's names, and Ohio law had specific protections that Derek clearly hadn't researched thoroughly enough. But as I sat in Robert's old study that afternoon, surrounded by filing cabinets he'd meticulously organized, I found something even better. A folder marked Insurance House contained more than just our homeowner's policy. There was a letter from Robert to Harold, dated just 2 months before his death, with copy original in Harold's safe, written across the top. My hands trembled as I read my husband's careful handwriting. Harold, if you're reading this to Margaret, then I'm gone and someone's trying to take advantage of her. I've watched Derek these past few years. The way he looks at our house, the questions about our finances, how he steers conversations toward Margaret's age and health. He's planning something. The trust we set up should protect her, but I want insurance on top of insurance. There's a video saved on the cloud account, password in the safe, where I've documented my concerns and made my wishes crystal clear. Use it if needed. Protect my Maggie. Robert. A video. My Robert had made a video. I sat back in his leather chair, breathing in the faint scent of His cologne that still lingered after 3 years. Even facing his own death, he'd been thinking of me, planning for my protection. I called Harold immediately. Did you know about the video? I have the password in my safe, as Robert instructed. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you. Margaret, I think that moment is now. Can you come back to the office? An hour later, we sat in Harold's conference room, laptop open between us. Harold typed in a complex password, and suddenly there was Robert. My Robert, sitting in this very room, wearing his favorite blue cardigan, looking directly at the camera with those steady brown eyes I'd fallen in love with 47 years ago. If you're watching this, Robert's recorded voice filled the room, then someone is trying to hurt my Margaret, probably Derek, my son-in-law. He leaned forward, his expression serious. I want to be clear, I am of completely sound mind. It's March 15th, 2021. I've just come from Dr. Patterson, who's given me about 6 months. My mind is sharp, even if my body's failing. And I need to say this while I still can. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears streaming down my face. Harold silently pushed a box of tissues my way. Robert continued. Derek Hoffman has, on multiple occasions, made comments about our house value, asked probing questions about our finances, and suggested that Margaret would be better off in assisted living. Last Christmas, I overheard him on the phone saying, and I quote, "Once the old man kicks it, we'll have her out of there in 6 months." He didn't know I was in the hallway. My God, I whispered. Derek had been planning this for over 3 years. I've taken steps to protect Margaret, Robert said on the screen. The house is in a trust that Harold Morrison manages. Any attempt to force Margaret from her home will result in immediate disinheritance for the perpetrator. This is my free will and decision, made with full mental capacity. Harold has documentation from Dr. Patterson confirming my mental competence as of this date. Robert paused, looked directly at the camera, directly at me. Maggie, honey, if you're watching this, I'm sorry I'm not there to handle this myself. But you're stronger than you know. Don't let anyone, family or otherwise, push you around. That house is yours until you decide otherwise. And sweetheart, give him hell. The video ended. I sat in silence, Harold's hand patting mine gently. He knew, I finally said. He knew exactly what Derek would try. Robert was a smart man, and he loved you very much. Harold ejected a USB drive from the laptop. This is your copy. The original stays in my safe, but you should have this for your records. I drove home with a strange mix of grief and fury burning in my chest. Grief for the man who'd loved me enough to protect me even from beyond the grave. Fury at the man who'd sat at our table, eaten our food, called Robert Dad to his face while planning to steal everything he'd worked for. Back home, I got to work. First, I downloaded the recording app Harold had recommended, testing it until I was sure I knew how to use it. Then I went through the house, room by room, photographing everything. Robert's collections, my grandmother's china, the artwork we'd gathered over the years. If Derek thought he was getting any of it, he needed to think again. I also started a journal, documenting everything I could remember. Every comment about my age, every suggestion about safety, every concerned look that was really calculation. The pattern, once I started looking for it, was obvious. How had I missed it for so long? Because I'd trusted them. Because Emma was my daughter and I'd wanted to believe the best of her husband. Because after Robert died, I'd been so lost in grief that I hadn't seen the vultures circling. Well, I saw them now. My phone rang. Emma. Hi, Mom. I just wanted to check that I didn't leave my purse there last night. Yes, dear, you did. It's here on the counter. I kept my voice normal, even as I stared at the damning brochure poking out of it. Oh, thank goodness. Derek's been frantic. He had some important papers in there. We'll swing by in an hour to get it, okay? Important papers. The power of attorney forms, no doubt. Waiting for my signature on my birthday, wrapped up like a gift of love instead of a betrayal. Of course, I'll put some coffee on. You're the best, Mom. See you soon. I hung up and immediately opened the recording app. 1 hour to prepare for the performance of my lifetime. They wanted to play games? Fine, but I'd be playing by my rules now. I tucked the phone in my pocket, making sure I knew exactly where the record button was. Then I placed Emma's purse on the kitchen table, right where they'd expect it, the Sunny Meadows brochure visible but not obviously so. Let them think I'd seen it. Let them scramble to explain. I also called my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, asking if she could pop by in about an hour. To return my casserole dish. Just come right in, I told her. You know the door's always open for you. A witness. Someone to interrupt if things got ugly. Another lesson from Robert, always have backup. As I waited for my daughter and her calculating husband to arrive, I thought about the video, about Robert's words. Give him hell. Oh, I intended to. But first, I needed them to give me more ammunition. Every word they spoke would be recorded. Every lie, every manipulation, every threat. I heard a car in the driveway and took a deep breath. Showtime. I pressed record on my phone, slipped it in my pocket with the microphone facing out, and went to open the door with my biggest, most grandmotherly smile. Emma, Derek, come in, come in. I've just made fresh coffee. Derek's eyes went straight to the kitchen, no doubt looking for the purse. I saw the moment he spotted it, saw the quick glance he exchanged with Emma. Oh yes, those important papers were definitely what he was after. I led them to the kitchen, where Emma's purse sat on the counter like bait. Derek's eyes locked onto it immediately, but he was trying to play casual. I poured coffee with slightly trembling hands, just enough shake to seem frail, not enough to spill. Your purse is right there, dear, I said to Emma, who grabbed it quickly, clutching it to her chest. Thanks, Mom. We should probably. Sit, I insisted, gesturing to the kitchen table. You rushed over here so quickly. At least have some coffee. I made cookies this morning. Derek's jaw tightened, but he sat. The leather folder he'd been carrying landed on my table with a soft thud. My grandmother's tablecloth, I noticed, the one she'd embroidered for my wedding. Soon to be sold at an estate sale if Derek had his way. Margaret, Derek began, his voice taking on that concerned tone I now recognized as pure manipulation. Since we're here, and since we're all together, I think this is the perfect time to discuss something Emma and I have been worried about. Oh, I settled into my chair, adding extra sugar to my coffee. Let him think my hands weren't quite steady. Your safety, he said, leaning forward. Emma and I have been talking, and we're concerned about you living alone in this big house. Emma shifted uncomfortably beside him. Mom's doing fine, she said quietly, but Derek's hand on her arm silenced her. Today she is, Derek continued. But Margaret, you're 73. Things can change quickly at your age. Just last week you forgot Emma was coming over. I hadn't forgotten. I'd been in the garden and hadn't heard the doorbell, but I let my face show confusion. Did I? See, Derek shot Emma a meaningful look before opening his folder. This is exactly what we're talking about. These little memory lapses, the way you sometimes repeat stories. Everyone repeats stories, I said, but I made my voice uncertain. Of course, but combined with living alone, managing this huge property. He spread out brochures across my table. Sunny Meadows, of course, the same ones from Emma's purse. We've found some wonderful options for you. Places where you'd be safe, cared for, where you wouldn't have to worry about maintenance or stairs or being alone. I picked up a brochure, squinting at it like I was having trouble reading. But this is a nursing home. Senior living community, Derek corrected quickly. It's like a resort, really. They have activities, dining rooms, medical staff if you need them. Wouldn't that be nice? Not having to cook every meal or clean this big house. I like cooking. I like my house. Of course you do. But Mom, Emma finally spoke, her voice strained. We worry. What if you fell? What if something happened and no one knew? I looked at my daughter, saw the misery in her eyes. She hated this, every word of it. But Derek's grip on her arm was firm, controlling. We're not saying you have to move tomorrow, Derek said, pulling out papers from his folder. But we think it would be smart to get some things in order. Legal things, financial things, just in case. What kind of things? I asked, blinking at him with practiced confusion. Well, for starters, a power of attorney. This would let Emma help you with bills, medical decisions, things like that. It's really just a safety net. He slid the document across the table. And maybe we should talk about adding Emma to the deed of the house. That way, if anything happens, there's no complicated probate. I studied the papers, running my finger along the words slowly. The power of attorney gave full and complete authority to Emma and Derek as co-agents. The deed transfer was even worse. It would make them co-owners immediately. This seems like such a big decision, I murmured. Which is why we should make it now, while you're still able to understand everything clearly, Derek said, and there it was, the threat wrapped in concern. Margaret, I'll be honest, we've not. Iced things, confusion, forgetfulness. Emma's doctor is worried. Dr. Patterson said I was healthy at my last checkup. Not Dr. Patterson, Dr. Brennan, he specializes in elderly care. Derek's smile was sharp now. He's willing to provide an evaluation if needed. A doctor I'd never met. The threat was becoming clearer. I let my voice quaver. I don't understand. Am I sick? Not sick, just aging. It happens to everyone. Derek leaned back. Look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Sign the papers now while you're still competent and everything stays friendly. You can even stay in the house for a while until we find the perfect spot at Sunny Meadows. And if I don't sign? His face hardened. Then we'll have to take steps to protect you from yourself. Court proceedings, competency hearings. It would be messy, embarrassing. All your friends would know. Is that really what you want? Emma made a small sound of protest, but Derek continued. Margaret, you'd be better off in a home. Somewhere safe, where professionals can take care of you. Somewhere that doesn't have all these stairs and maintenance issues and memories of Robert making you sad. Using Robert's name, suggesting his memory was a burden rather than a blessing. The recording app in my pocket was capturing every cruel word, every threat, every manipulation. I let tears fill my eyes, not difficult, considering my anger. I need to think about this, I said, my voice shaking. There's nothing to think about, Derek snapped. Either you sign or we make you sign. Those are your options. When Derek said I'd be better off in a home, I finally set down my coffee cup with a steady hand. No more trembling. No more confused elderly woman act. The time for pretending was over. You know what, Derek? You're absolutely right. I would be better off in a home. I stood up slowly, my posture straightening, my voice losing its quaver. My own home, this home, the one you've been plotting to steal for the past 3 years. The change in Derek's face was almost comical. His mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish gasping for air. I don't know what you're... Stop, I held up my hand. Just stop. I heard you on the porch last week. Worthless old woman taking up space. By Christmas, we'll have her in Sunny Meadows. The old bat doesn't even realize. Ring any bells? Emma's face had gone white. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about your husband's plan to declare me incompetent and steal my house. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the recording app. But don't take my word for it. Let's listen to Derek's own words, shall we? You can't record, Derek started. Ohio is a one-party consent state, I said calmly. I can record any conversation I'm part of, and I've been recording everything. Every phone call, every threat, every lie. I hit play on this morning's recording. Derek's voice filled the room. Look, Margaret, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. If you fight us, Margaret, we'll have to take legal action. Declare you incompetent. It would be messy, embarrassing. His recorded voice continued, each word another nail in his coffin. I watched his face cycle through emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, a desperate kind of calculation as he tried to figure out how to salvage this. That's taken out of context, he stammered when the recording ended. Oh, I have context. I pulled out a folder of my own. Like this email to a realtor about my house. Already discussing the sale price, weren't you? Or these notes in Emma's purse about power of attorney forms and Dr. Brennan, a doctor I've never met who's apparently ready to declare me incompetent. Mom, I can explain, Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. Can you explain why you were going to let him put me in a home and sell everything your father and I built together? Can you explain why you didn't just ask for help with your debts? Emma's sob was answer enough. Derek, meanwhile, had shifted tactics. Fine, he said, his mask completely off now. So you know, so what? You're still just one old woman against us. Emma's my wife. She'll stand by me, and I've got Dr. Brennan ready to testify. Dr. Brennan is Emma's gynecologist, I interrupted. I doubt the medical board would look kindly on him making psychiatric evaluations of patients he's never met, especially when my actual doctor, Dr. Patterson, just signed a statement saying I'm in excellent mental and physical health. Derek's face was turning an interesting shade of purple. You think you're so smart. No, Derek, I think my husband was smart. I pulled out the documents Harold had given me, the copies of Robert's will and the deed. I watched him stare at the legal text, his eyes darting frantically. That's not possible, he whispered, his bravado crumbling. Harold would never. Derek stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is. Bullshit. Emma, we're leaving. But Emma didn't move. She sat there, tears rolling down her cheeks, staring at her hands folded in her lap. Emma, Derek's voice was a snarl now. No, Emma finally said, her voice barely audible. What? Derek demanded, turning on her. I'm not leaving, Derek. I'm staying with Mom. My wife. We're married. You come with me now. Or what? I interjected, my voice cold and steady. Derek's face contorted with rage, but he had no answer. This isn't over, he said, grabbing his leather folder. Yes, it is. I followed him to the door. If you come near me again, if you call, if you so much as drive past my house, I'll file a restraining order. Harold Morrison is expecting my call if you try anything. And Derek, that cease and desist letter he prepared, it'll be delivered to your office tomorrow. Your employer will be very interested to know about your attempted elder abuse. Emma's face crumbled as she heard her husband's words echoing from my phone one more time. I'd replayed the part where he called me a worthless old woman, where he laughed about having me in Sunny Meadows by Christmas. Each word seemed to hit her like a physical blow. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered, her voice broken. I'm so sorry. I sat down beside her, not touching her yet. Sometimes the space between people says more than closeness can. Tell me everything, Emma. Start from the beginning. She wiped her eyes with the napkin from breakfast, smearing her mascara. It started about 2 years ago. Derek had this sure-thing investment opportunity. He said it would set us up for life, that we'd be able to help you more, maybe even move you to a nice condo closer to us. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. What happened? He lost everything. Our savings, then he took out loans, maxed out credit cards. When that wasn't enough, he started gambling to try to win it back. Her hands twisted the napkin into shreds. Classic gambler's logic, right? Just one more bet, just one more chance. How much, Emma? $87,000. And that's not counting the second mortgage he took out without telling me. She looked up at me then, her eyes swimming with tears. I found out about that last month. He forged my signature. My chest tightened. This was worse than I'd imagined. Why didn't you come to me? How could I? Dad had just died, you were grieving, and I'd married this man who… She couldn't finish. Derek said we could fix it. He had a plan. He made it sound so reasonable at first. You were all alone in this big house. It made sense for you to downsize. The market was perfect for selling. And when I didn't want to sell, that's when he started talking about other options. Emma's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He said you were getting forgetful, said he'd noticed things. He was so convincing, Mom. He'd point out every little thing if you misplaced your keys, if you repeated a story. He kept a notebook. A notebook, documenting my supposed decline. The calculating cruelty of it made my stomach turn. He made me doubt my own eyes, Emma continued. When I'd say you seemed fine, he'd tell me I was in denial, that I was being selfish, letting you stay in danger because I couldn't face reality. He said a good daughter would protect her mother, even if it meant making hard choices. And you believed him. I wanted to believe there was a way out. The words burst from her like a dam breaking. I was drowning, Mom. The creditors calling, the threats of foreclosure, Derek getting more desperate and angry every day. And he kept saying it was for your own good too, that you'd be happier, safer. I let myself believe it because the alternative was… Was what? Was admitting I'd married a man who would destroy anyone to save himself, including me, including you. She met my eyes then, and I saw the depth of her self-loathing. I knew it was wrong. Deep down, I knew. But I was so scared, Mom. Scared of losing my house, my marriage, everything. Are you scared now? Emma looked toward the door Derek had slammed. Terrified, but not of losing him. I'm scared of what he'll do when he realizes I'm not coming home. I reached out then, took her hand. It was cold, trembling. You're not going back to him. Mom, I can't impose. You're my daughter. This is your home. You're staying here until we figure this out. I squeezed her hand. But Emma, there are going to be conditions. She nodded quickly. Anything. I'll do anything to make this right. First, we're going to see Harold Morrison tomorrow. You're filing for divorce and getting a restraining order. Derek forged your signature. That's fraud. We're going to protect you legally. Okay. Second, you're going to see a counselor. Someone who specializes in financial abuse and manipulation. Because that's what this was, Emma. He abused you too. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I helped him. I'm just as guilty. No, my voice was firm. You were manipulated by someone who was supposed to love and protect you. That's not the same as being the manipulator. But you need help to understand that, to heal from it. What about the debts? We'll figure it out. Harold will know bankruptcy attorneys. And Emma… I waited until she looked at me. I'm going to help you. Not Derek, not your marriage, but you. There are ways to do it that won't give him access to a penny. I don't deserve. Stop. I pulled her into my arms then, holding her the way I had when she was small and the world was too big and frightening. You're my daughter. You made a terrible mistake, but you're still my daughter. And right now, you need your mother. She sobbed against my shoulder, her whole body shaking. I held her tight, stroking her hair, feeling my own tears fall. My baby girl, so lost, so broken by a man who'd promised to cherish her. What about the house? She asked when she could speak again. Dad's trust. If I tried to force you out, I can't inherit. The house isn't what matters, I said, pulling back to look at her face. You are, but to answer your question, Harold will help us figure it out. The trust has provisions. Robert was very specific. It's about protecting me from coercion, not punishing children who make mistakes. If you're not trying to force me out anymore, if you're getting help, making amends, we'll find a way. I'll make this right, Emma said fiercely. I'll testify against Derek if you need me to. I'll tell everyone what he tried to do. What we need to focus on right now is keeping you safe and getting you free. I stood up, pulling her with me. Go wash your face. Then we're going to pack a bag and go to your house together to get your things. Mrs. Chen's son is a police officer. I'll ask him to escort us. You think Derek might? I think Derek is a desperate man who just lost everything he schemed for. We're not taking chances. I touched her cheek gently. But Emma, he's also a coward. Bullies usually are. Once he realizes he can't intimidate us anymore, he'll slink away to find an easier target. Emma hugged me again, tighter this time. I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry I forgot that for a while. I love you too, sweetheart, and you didn't forget. You just got lost. But you're finding your way back, and that's what matters. As I watched her head upstairs to wash her face, I thought about Robert. He'd protected me even from beyond the grave, but more than that, he'd given me the tools to protect our daughter too. The house, the trust, Harold's help, they were all part of his final gift. But the greatest gift was simpler. The strength to stand up to a bully, the wisdom to see through manipulation, and the love to forgive a daughter who'd lost her way. Derek had called me a worthless old woman. He had no idea how wrong he was, and now he never would. Because worthless people don't save their children. They don't fight back. They don't win. And I was just getting started. The next morning, Harold arrived with papers of our own, a briefcase full of legal documents that would build a wall between Derek and our family. Emma sat beside me at the dining room table, having barely slept in her childhood bedroom, but looking more determined than I'd seen her in years. First things first, Harold said, spreading documents across the table. Emergency restraining order. I've already spoken to Judge Martinez. Given the recorded threats and the attempted financial abuse, she's granting a temporary order immediately. Derek cannot come within 500 feet of either of you. Emma's hand found mine under the table as she signed her name with a steady hand. Each signature was a small act of rebellion against the man who'd controlled her for so long. Next, the divorce papers, Harold continued. I've taken the liberty of consulting with Sarah Brennan. She's the best divorce attorney in Columbus, especially for cases involving financial abuse. She'll file this afternoon. Given the forged mortgage documents and the evidence of coercion, she's confident we can protect Emma's interests. What about the debts? Emma asked quietly. The gambling debts are in Derek's name only. The credit cards, we'll have to sort through which charges were legitimate household expenses versus his gambling. The forged mortgage is criminal fraud. Sarah thinks we can get it voided entirely. Harold's expression was grim but satisfied. Derek's going to have bigger problems than debt collection soon. I watched my daughter absorb this information, saw hope beginning to bloom in her eyes. Now, Harold turned to me, let's talk about protecting you going forward. I've drafted a new will that's even more explicit about attempts at coercion. But I also want to discuss something else, a trust for Emma. Emma started to protest, but I squeezed her hand. Go on, Harold. Robert anticipated this possibility, Harold said gently. Not the specifics. But that one of your children might find themselves in a desperate situation. He left instructions for a redemption trust, my term, not his. Essentially, we can create a financial safety net for Emma that bypasses Derek entirely. I don't deserve, Emma began. This isn't about deserving, I interrupted. It's about protecting you and giving you a fresh start. Harold, what would this involve? Harold pulled out another set of papers. The trust would pay off Emma's legitimate debts directly, no cash to Derek. It would also provide a modest monthly income for 2 years while she gets back on her feet, contingent on her completing financial counseling and maintaining the divorce proceedings. Think of it as investing in Emma's recovery. How much are we talking about? I asked. After selling some of the bonds Robert left, about $120,000 for debt relief, plus $2,000 monthly for living expenses. It won't impact your financial security, Margaret. Robert made sure of that. Emma was crying again, but these were different tears. I'll pay it back, every penny. The trust includes a provision for that, Harold smiled. If you choose to repay it, wonderful, But there's no obligation. Your father wanted his children protected, even from their own mistakes. We spent the next hour signing papers, each document another brick in the wall protecting us from Derek. Harold explained each one carefully, the restraining orders, the divorce filing, the trust documents, the updated will. By the time we finished, my hand was cramping, but my heart was lighter. "There's one more thing," Harold said as he packed up his briefcase. "Derek called my office this morning, 3 times before my secretary stopped putting him through. He's demanding to speak with you, claiming this is all a misunderstanding." "What did you tell him?" "That all communication needs to go through attorneys from now on. He didn't like that." Harold's smile was sharp. "He threatened to sue me for interfering in family affairs. I reminded him that I've been your family's attorney for 20 years and his opinion on the matter was irrelevant." Emma's phone buzzed on the table. Derek's name flashed on the screen, the 15th call this morning. She declined it again. "You should block him," I said. "Sarah Brennan advised against it for now," Emma replied. "She wants me to document the harassment. Every call, every text, every voicemail. Evidence for the divorce." As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a text. I saw Emma's face tighten as she read it. "What does it say?" She turned the phone so we could see. "You'll regret this. Both of you, I know where you are." Harold immediately took a photo of the screen with his own phone. "That's a violation of the restraining order already. I'll send this to the police." He looked at both of us seriously. "I don't think Derek's dangerous, just desperate. But be careful, keep your doors locked. Don't go anywhere alone for a few days." After Harold left, Emma and I sat in the quiet house, the weight of the morning's decisions settling around us. Outside, I could see Robert's roses blooming, indifferent to the drama inside. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "what if he does something crazy? What if he tries to hurt you because of me? Then he'll find out that your father taught me to shoot 30 years ago, and I still keep his pistol in my nightstand." I said it matter-of-factly, but I saw Emma's eyes widen. "What? You think I lived alone for 3 years without protection?" I never thought. "There's a lot about me you don't know, sweetheart. A lot Derek never bothered to learn. He saw an old woman and assumed I was helpless. That was his first mistake." Emma's phone rang again. This time, it was a number I recognized, our house landline. My blood ran cold. "He's at the house," Emma whispered. I immediately called 911, then Harold, then Mrs. Chen's son, Officer Chen. Within minutes, we had confirmation Derek's car was indeed in my driveway. He was pounding on the door, shouting for Emma to come home, that he could explain everything. "Stay here," Officer Chen told us over the phone. "We're 2 minutes out. Do not go back to the house until we give the all-clear." Emma and I waited, holding hands across Harold's conference table, as the drama played out a mile away. Her phone rang constantly, Derek, then unknown numbers that were probably also Derek. Each ring was a reminder of how quickly a desperate man could unravel. Finally, Officer Chen called back. "We have him in custody. He violated the restraining order, attempted to break in through the back door, and took a swing at one of my officers. He's looking at multiple charges now." Emma sagged with relief, but I felt only a cold satisfaction. Derek had destroyed himself, just as I'd predicted. All we'd had to do was give him the rope. "Can we go home?" Emma asked. "After we document the damage and change the locks," Officer C. Hen said. "Mrs. Sullivan, he did some damage to your back door before we arrived. Nothing that can't be fixed, but you'll want to call your insurance company." As we prepared to leave Harold's office, my phone rang. An unknown number, but something made me answer it. "You think you've won?" Derek's voice was raw, unhinged. He must have been calling from jail. "You've destroyed everything, my marriage, my life." "No, Derek," I said calmly, putting him on speaker so Harold could hear. "You destroyed everything. I just refused to be one of your victims." Derek showed up one last time, but the sheriff was already waiting. It was 3 weeks after his arrest, the day after he'd posted bail. Emma and I watched from the living room window as he stood at the edge of the property line, exactly 500 feet away, shouting something we couldn't hear. The sheriff's deputy, a young woman who'd been parked outside our house since dawn, simply stepped out of her cruiser and pointed at the restraining order distance marker we'd installed. Derek's shoulders slumped. Even from this distance, I could see the fight drain out of him. He'd lost his job after the arrest made the papers. Sarah Brennan had fast-tracked the divorce. The criminal charges were piling up. And here he stood, reduced to yelling at a house he'd never enter again. "He looks so small," Emma said quietly, her coffee mug warming her hands. "He was always small," I replied. "We just couldn't see it before." The deputy escorted Derek back to his car, following him until he drove away. It would be the last time either of us saw him in person. 2 months later, he'd take a plea deal that included jail time and a permanent restraining order. But that morning, watching him drive away, I felt only a profound sense of peace. Emma had been living with me for those 3 weeks, sleeping in her childhood room with its faded butterfly wallpaper. Each morning, we had coffee in the kitchen where I'd first heard Derek's true opinion of me. Each evening, we cooked dinner together, slowly rebuilding the easy rhythm we'd lost. "I've been thinking," Emma said, turning from the window, "about this house, what it means." "Oh." When Derek looked at it, all he saw was money, square footage, and market value. She ran her hand along the doorframe, where pencil marks still showed her height at various ages. "But it's not just a house, is it? It's our whole life. Every room has a story." I thought about Robert proposing at the kitchen table, about teaching Emma to bake in that same kitchen, about the garden we'd planted together, season after season. "Your father used to say a house only becomes a home when you fill it with love." I helped try to steal that from you. The guilt in her voice was still raw, though softer than it had been. "No, sweetheart. You were drowning, and someone you trusted handed you what looked like a life preserver. You didn't know it was an anchor." I set down my coffee and took her hands. "The important thing is that when the moment came, you chose love over fear. You chose me over him." Emma's therapy sessions were helping her understand the manipulation she'd endured. Dr. Patel, her therapist, had explained how financial abusers isolated their victims, created dependency, and gradually normalized increasingly extreme behavior. Emma was learning to forgive herself, one session at a time. "I've been thinking about getting my real estate license," she said suddenly. "Not to sell houses like Derek wanted, to help people find homes, real homes, not just investments. I think that's wonderful. And I want to specialize in helping older people who might be vulnerable to what almost happened to you. Help them understand their rights, protect their assets, keep their homes if that's what they want." I felt a surge of pride. My daughter was taking her pain and transforming it into purpose. "Your father would be so proud." "I hope so." She looked around the living room, at the photos covering every surface, the Afghan my mother had crocheted draped over the sofa, the grandfather clock ticking steadily in the corner. "Mom, I need to tell you something. These past few weeks living here again, it's shown me what I almost lost. Not just the house, but you, the real you." "What do I mean?" "Derek kept telling me you were declining, getting confused, becoming less capable. He pointed out every little thing as evidence. But living with you now, seeing you handle everything, the legal stuff, the police, the insurance claims, Mom, you're one of the strongest people I know. You always have been." I thought about that word strong. It wasn't one I'd have used for myself before this all started. I was just Margaret Sullivan, retired teacher, widow, grandmother. But strength, I was learning, came in many forms. "We're both stronger than we knew," I said. Emma moved back to her own apartment 2 months later, after the divorce was finalized and she'd started her real estate classes. But she came for dinner every Sunday, and we talked on the phone every morning. The trust Harold had set up paid off her debts, and she was slowly rebuilding her life. I kept living in my house, tending Robert's roses, hosting the church book club, volunteering at the library. But now I also spoke at senior centers about financial elder abuse, sharing my story to help others recognize the warning signs. Harold helped me create a presentation about protecting assets and knowing your rights. One evening, 6 months after that terrible day on the porch, I stood in my garden as the sun set. The roses were in full bloom, their scent heavy in the warm air. I thought about Derek calling me a worthless old woman, about how those words had started everything. Worthless. I rolled the word around in my mind like a smooth stone. A worthless woman wouldn't have fought back. She wouldn't have protected her home, saved her daughter, stood up to a bully. A worthless woman wouldn't have the strength to forgive, the wisdom to see through manipulation, or the courage to share her story to help others. I was 73 years old. I lived alone in a big house that needed constant maintenance. I missed my husband every single day, but worthless? No, I was Margaret Sullivan. I was a teacher, a mother, a survivor. I was the keeper of memories, the tender of roses, the woman who looked a predator in the eye and refused to be prey. The phone rang inside, probably Emma, calling to say goodnight. I took one last look at the garden, at the house Robert and I had made into a home, at the life I'd fought to keep. Then I went inside to answer it, moving through rooms filled with photographs and memories, strength and love. Derek had been wrong about so many things, but most of all, he'd been wrong about me. I wasn't worthless. I never had been. And now, finally, I knew it too. You know, when I share this story at senior centers now, people often ask me what the hardest part was. Was it hearing those cruel words? Discovering the betrayal? Fighting back? The truth is, the hardest part was accepting that I had value worth fighting for. We live in a world that tells us we become less valuable as we age, that our worth diminishes with each gray hair, each wrinkle, each year past some arbitrary prime. But that's a lie. Our worth isn't in our youth or our productivity or what we can provide for others. It's in our very existence, our stories, our right to dignity and respect. If you're watching this because someone in your life makes you feel worthless, whether it's family, friends, or strangers, I want you to know something. You are not worthless. You are not a burden. You are not taking up space that belongs to someone else. You have every right to your home, your independence, your choices, your life. Stay vigilant. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone rush you into decisions, especially about your home or finances. And remember, the people who truly love you will never try to steal from you, no matter how desperately they might need help. If my story resonates with you, if you've faced betrayal from those who should have protected you, I see you. I understand. And I want you to know that you can fight back. You can win. You can reclaim not just your property, but your sense of self-worth. Please share your story in the comments if you feel comfortable. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is the knowledge that we're not alone. And if you know someone who might need to hear this story, share it with them. You never know who might be suffering in silence. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of strength, survival, and justice. Because every one of us has a story worth telling, and none of us are worthless. Not at 73, not at 93, not ever. Remember, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you are stronger than you know.